Welcome to my guide to assemble my 3D printed magnetic stirrer. These are all the 3D printed parts that you need for this build. And the first thing that we need to do is like some hardware preparation, like removing the supports. I already went ahead and removed some of the supports for some parts. And it's pretty straightforward, just be careful and be delicate, especially around the edges, because they're really delicate. And simply push out the support and clean them up. Be especially mindful for this little support in here that are very close to the wall. It's really easy to like break the print. There we go. The second thing that we need to do is drilling this little hole in here. I already 3D printed a hole that should guide your drill. You can fit whatever screw you want in here as long as the cap of the screw fits in this little groove. This is where the motor will go, and be mindful of that because these little CD driver motors, they have this little bump here, so be sure whatever screw you use that basically the motor can still fit inside. I'm using what I think it is an M3 screw. I'll write the exact screw in the description when I find out what it is. It will go in there like so, and then we can screw it in the hole. Just don't put it like this if the screw is bigger than the hole, otherwise you will introduce tensions in the plastic and you will basically break the plastic. Just pre-drill the hole on the right size you need, and be careful while you do it because 3D printed plastic, it's pretty fragile. You can also use glue. The way I suggest you can use glue if you don't have the right screw is still pre-drill the holes of both the motor holders and the shaft. And what basically you want to do is should have pre-drilled this as well, is basically position your motor holder aligned with the hole and squirt some glue in here, like super glue or maybe hot glue, whatever you have, and fill a little bit also the brim over here. Be mindful not to overfill it, because otherwise you won't be able to fit the motor due to this little bump that's there. Don't put the glue like directly on the bottom of the motor holder, because the height of the motor will be very important later to fit our whole build together. Before continuing, let's see a couple of options for our electronics. The first one is this one, where we basically forget about the battery. We use it with the cable. We take power directly from our cable and we feed it to the PWM that will power our motor. This is the simplest option we can get, the cheapest, and also the easiest. If you are not like that advanced in electronic, it's your first project or whatever, I would suggest you build this one. The second option is this one, which I would not recommend, and is the one you will see me build in the video, just because I don't have the components to build the third option that I will show briefly. I would not recommend this for the simple fact that you cannot charge this circuit while you use the stirrer. This is because this charging module is not able to detect when the battery is fully charged while you use it. And this might lead the battery to explode. You can use this and you can charge it only if you turn off this switch and basically disable the whole circuit. Otherwise you cannot do it. If you forget this switch on and you leave it to charge, you risk to make the battery explode basically. So I would not recommend this one. The last option for our electronics which is also the safest and the one I would recommend and build if I had all the components, is this one, which is basically the same circuit we had before except for this part down here. And what this allows us to do is basically to charge the battery while we use our motor without the risk that the battery catches fire or explodes. The way it works is pretty simple. We have this P MOSFET down here that works as a switch. If we plug in the USB cable, we would have 5 volt on this line, meaning that the gate would be high and the switch would be open. When the switch is open, the battery is disconnected from the load. The load still gets power through this line, through this Schottky diode, and the battery is still being charged because we still have power to the charging module. When we remove the USB cable, we would have 0 volt on this line, meaning that the gate is low and the P MOSFET is closed. And this allows us basically to power our motor using our battery. Just be sure to connect the MOSFET in the right way, otherwise this circuit won't work. The last couple of notes for people that maybe are not that familiar with electronics. This right here is a 10 kilo ohm resistor, and the Schottky diode down here, we need this because basically we don't want the current to flow backwards. If we don't put this here when the MOSFET is closed, so is conducting, we risk basically that the voltage from this cable might go through here and basically activate the gate, opening the MOSFET, and we don't want this. We want to open the MOSFET only when we connect the USB cable, and this is why we need this Schottky diode. We need this voltage booster up here, simply because this PWM controller works with voltages between 4.5 and 12 volts, if I remember correctly. So we need to basically boost the voltage of our battery from 4.2 to at least 5 volts. It can be in between 5 and 6 volts without problems. And the way we do this is we connect the multimeter here before connecting the outputs of the booster to the PWM, and we can adjust the voltage by twisting this knob up here. Don't worry, anyway, you will see me do this in the video before attaching it to the PWM. The last thing for those of you that maybe are not that experienced in reading circuit diagrams is these little bridges here. Means basically that this black cable is not connected to this red cable, while if the connection is like this, it means that this cable is connected to this cable. This is all for the electronics. I won't be building this circuit because I'm missing some parts, but it should be pretty easy to build and straightforward. Just connect the components as showed in this diagram. If you have any problems, just let me know. I might be able to get the missing components, and I can build this circuit. If you spot any errors in the diagrams, just let me know. It's quite possible, as I'm not an expert. Another little bit of hardware preparation that we need to do is to trim the soldering pin of the PWM controller. This one had pretty bad overhangs. So if we put it like this, it won't fit in the in its place, because you can see those little pins are preventing it to fitting. So we simply trim them off. Maybe you will be more lucky than me with your Chinese components. You won't have to do this, but we'll see. Also check the other pins if they are too high, and make sure that it properly fits. We can then secure this just with the included nut, just like so. Okay, so we just connected the outputs of the battery charge module to the voltage booster, along with a switch that allows us to basically disable power to our loads that will be the motor. This is important because with this system you cannot use your stirrer while you charge it, because otherwise this won't be able to detect when the battery is charged. And since we are using a lithium battery, it might be dangerous because it might explode if we overcharge it, you know. So don't do that. Just turn it off while charging it. The next thing that we want to do is connect the PWM controller to the motor and to power. Power comes from here. The connection are pretty straightforward. Let me see. Okay, you have motor plus and minus for positive and negative, and voltage positive and negative. Before connecting this to this, use this little screw to adjust the output voltage. We will do this before connecting this, and then the connection is pretty straightforward. You get voltage plus, you put it to V plus, and the minus, you put it in the minus. To adjust the voltage, we need to connect the battery. We connect it here, plus and minus. Plus is red, minus is black, of course. I'm just putting all the electronics in it because if you solder the battery, you won't be able to fit everything through the switch port. Now that we have connected the multimeter to our output, negative with negative and positive with positive, we can turn on the switch to measure the output voltage and make sure that it's 5 volt, as in this case. If it's not, you can twist this little knob here and you can basically lower or increase the voltage as you wish. Let's reset this to 5 volts. There we go. That's probably is enough. We are ready to connect the motor. Okay, so as before, we first connect like the output here. As you can see, the output must be at least 4.5 volt for this to work. The motor requires 5 volts, so this should be fine. We take the positive output and we put it in the positive terminal. There we go. We do the same with the negative. And then we insert the motor in the motor holder. Like so. And we put the positive on the positive and the negative on the negative. At this point we can also do a little bit of a test. So let's put in the disc. You might also have to pre-drill the hole in the disc so that it fits. And if we turn it on, we can see that it works. And we can control the speed of the motor. So now we can continue assembling our components. We can simply put this in here with this nut. Just grab a pair of pliers and give it a couple of turns. Don't over tighten it because the plastic is pretty fragile. And we have our potentiometer installed. We can take also the little knob and put it on. That's it. We can then install the motor, remove a little bit the motor from the housing, take the screw and simply screw this in. Also here, don't over tighten it because plastic is fragile and it might snap off also the thread. You don't have to thread the hole, like the screw is strong enough to basically pre-thread it. You can then push the wires through, maybe help yourself with a pair of pliers or something, and install the motor, like so. Okay, so now we are ready to basically glue everything in the enclosure, which is gonna be painful. Just a quick tip, maybe use this to connect the battery charge module through the port before gluing everything, and try to move everything out of the way as you glue every component. So maybe one note when you glue down the battery charge module, don't put the glue on these black chips over here because they get very hot sometimes and they can melt the glue. Put it like on the edges here or here and here. Avoid putting it in the middle. Okay. Just connect the USB-C to the module, make sure it's connected, and then try to move everything out of the way. And just keep it until it cures. After we glue down everything, we can prepare the disc with the magnets. Simply take the magnets, put them in. The disc you downloaded probably will have only 2 slots, for it's completely unnecessary. And you can glue this down, or you can just use some tape to put on, just to verify that you put everything correctly. I'm just gonna leave tape because I might have to take this apart again. Now we can put it on the motor, like so. Now that we have everything in, we can just put the lid on and see if it works. Just turning this on. It works. We can also test that it charges correctly. Just be mindful, turn it off before connecting it to power. Be sure it's not on. And we can connect the cable and we can see the charging is working. And that's it. The top cover, you can either glue it or just put it on like this. It will stay up because it is a little bevel in here that keeps it in place. I like it to keep it like this because I might have to open it up to do some tweaking or substitute maybe some electronics and stuff in the future.